Bane, a fighter that goes pure physical, full clears the jungle and plays aggressively right from the get-go. This is surely the best way to play him in the current meta, right? Well, I have found an off-meta way to play Bane, utilizing his early game sustain and speed to survive long enough for him to scale into a monster. With damage catching even global ranked players off guard, in this video I will show you how I achieved mythic glory playing only Bane, using a build that isn't very popular anymore, in a lane where he gets destroyed by almost every pick. Meet Wizard Bane. Let's get into it. First, let's answer the main question surrounding this pick, why Mage Bane EXP. In terms of Bane as a hero, he plays the role of almost everything. He can act as an assassin with his insane burst late game, serve as a poke mage going in and out of fights chunking enemies with each skill cast, play a more reserved playstyle playing back and peeling his carry with ult, or play as he was intended to as a split push fighter melting towers with his ult and getting to safety with his second skill speed. He is an incredibly flexible pick which scales insanely into the late game. Once Bane gets his 15 stacks Clock of Destiny, he suddenly becomes a target you can't ignore. Let's look at how to play the lane phase. Level 1, I always buy boots and immediately upgrade it to arcane boots, as the speed helps him get out of engage easily with his second skill combined. Level 1 to 4 is definitely his weakest stage in the game, being demolished by almost every meta hero, which is why during this stage you play extremely passively farming only with your first skill, never walking up to auto the wave and only doing so when you're sure of where the enemy is. Bane thrives off short trades, so if you were to get engaged on, try your best to weave in enhanced passive auto attacks while finishing the trade with your second skill spin. His second skill is truly what makes the pick OP in my eyes, as the sustain it provides goes toe-to-toe with even meta. Sustain EXP laners like Yu Zhong and Tamus. As long as you play safe and don't get caught out of position, it is very hard to die as Bane due to the immense healing and move speed. As soon as you get level 4, you want to save it for the turtle fight and position in such a way that you can hit as many targets as possible. The difference between a good Bane and a great Bane is the direction in which you use your ultimate. You want to always throw your ultimate towards areas you expect the enemy to come from. This can be towards bushes or an area covering the space enemies have to walk towards to support their teammates. During the level 4 turtle fight, try to zone off the enemy jungler and ult him before he gets in range to retrieve the turtle. Use your second skill speed wisely, since as soon as that runs out, you're pretty easy to catch and burst down. After this major fight, your job is simple. Farm properly whilst doing your best not to die, alternating between waves to roam around between mid and the enemy jungle gaining vision. As Bane, a trick you can do to counter aggressive picks who cut your wave is ult the tower as soon as the in-game timer hits 5 minutes. This is because at this time the gold plating fades, leaving the tower vulnerable. Doing this and immediately retreating to your tower, spam pinging your teammates that a Deeroth is roaming mid will help prevent you from feeding while still making progress in your lane. Remember, you don't need to dominate your lane in kills to win it. As long as you scale up properly on Bane, every game is winnable. Bane's main power spike comes after his Clock of Destiny reaches 15 stacks, as this item provides an additional 5% extra magic power and gives him 600 extra max mana. At this point, Bane will never run out of mana, allowing him to freely spam his second skill, zooming around the map helping out wherever needed. On Bane, I found that he does not enjoy long, drawn-out fights, as usually enemies would be able to burst him down before his second skill comes back off cooldown, which is why poking with his second skill is far more effective before taking a fight to chunk enemies down to half health, making it worse for them to take the fight. Once Bane gets 2 or 3 items, he can't really one-shot enemies as of yet, which is why he needs to poke them out of fights, focusing on pushing in towers with his incredible turret damage gained from his passive. Now, Bane is great after level 4, but what about his weaknesses? The biggest weakness is how useless he feels before his first item power spike. Your teammates will probably be toxic in chat, calling your pick useless or asking you where your damage is. However, you need to ignore them and simply focus on farming. Before Bane gets items, he's more a supportive pick with his ult, not really dishing out crazy damage but staying around in short skirmishes to peel your allies and poke enemies out. Now, let's talk about a few secrets that will immediately make you a better Bane player. For one, this is a tip that is showed on the loading screen when you pick Bane, but I didn't realize how it worked until much later. On his second skill, it is optimal to always use the spit right after the heal so that the cooldown starts right away, allowing for you to heal again. On Mage Bane, this is crucial in the mid game as you're gonna want to actually use the second skill before the charge up is completed, so that you can 1. Catch enemies off guard and 2. Constantly spam heals. In high ranks, enemies always expect you to charge up your second skill to the maximum since the damage increase is substantial. However, with this magic build, even getting hit with a normal spit serves for powerful poke. The second tip on Bane is to not be so stingy using your ult. Bane has a very strong ultimate, however, in the mid game its cooldown is very short, somewhere around 30 seconds, allowing for you to use it more frequently. I see a lot of Bane players hold their ult for too long, not getting the value from spamming it. Think about it like this: if you predict a fight happening in the next 30s, what would you do? Many players would just play safe and rotate as the fight starts. However, something you can do which is better is to ult your laner when he's under his tower, poking him and getting damage on the tower. This ensures that if your enemy laner decides to join the fight, he would be chunked from your ult plus spit combo. You poke the tower, and by the time the fight starts, your ult would be back up, reaping full value of its short cooldown. You need to understand when to switch from playing safe and playing aggressive with Bane, as enemies will often not respect you. In lane, you can catch them off guard with your burst post level 4. This third tip is probably the most important tip for Bane in late game, and that would be positioning. With this build, you play Bane as more of a mage instead of a fighter. Although he can absorb poke like it's nothing, he's extremely susceptible to burst, and therefore, you must always be mindful of your position on the map and if the enemies have vision on you. Bane is very strong in fights happening in the jungle, as he has many angles. He can send his ult to reach the back line or cut them off, so always make sure you're with your team or at least near to them so they can support you. The ideal scenario is the enemies being too focused on your team so you can sneak a 5-man ult. If you can land this in the late game, it's pretty much an auto win. And at this point of the game, his ult would be roughly 20 seconds, meaning you can use it multiple times in a fight. The key point is to stay alive in this fight, as remember, you are not a tanky pick. Now let's get into counters and bans. Heroes like Lolita and Diggy absolutely hard counter Bane, as Lolita sends all your skills back, which include your ultimate, and Diggy pretty much makes your ult useless. Bane also gets countered by pretty much any burst assassin hero in the game, which would include things like Diroth, Saber, Helkert, Yin, and so on. You can be extremely fed while their Diroth is 0-8 and he would still be able to one-shot you. For bans, I would recommend banning mainly meta heroes, as my ban is almost 100% of the time Masha. She is impossible to play against past level 4. No counterplay. You just die. For builds, I always run either one of these two on screen. In high rank games, there will almost always be a need for Necklace of Durance. However, if you notice the enemy team has no healing, feel free to swap the second item for whatever you prefer, whether that be more damage or a magic defense item like Winter Truncheon. Also, there's a bug where if you use Winter Truncheon at the same time Yin presses ult, he goes to the Shadow Realm while you stay frozen outside of it. The overall rating for the pick is that, in all honesty, if you want to win games fast, it isn't the best at it. It is simply an off-meta pick that absolutely dominates if you play well, which is what I want this channel to be all about. Do you have any off-meta ideas you want to see next? Let me know down in the comments and I will surely test them out. Thank you for watching.